Mythology. Timeless Tales of Gods and Heroes. Edith Hamilton. 75th Anniversary Illustrated Edition. Chapter 1. The Gods. Strange clouded fragments of an ancient glory. Late lingerers of the company divine. They breathe of that far world from wherefrom they come. Lost halls of heaven and Olympia air. The Greeks did not believe that the gods created the universe. It was the other way around. It was the other way about. The universe created the gods. Before there were gods, heaven and earth had been formed. They were the first parents. The Titans were their children, and the gods were their grandchildren. The Titans and the 12 great Olympians. The Titans, often called the Elder Gods, were for untold ages supreme in the universe. They were of enormous size and of incredible strength. There were many of them, but only a few appear in stories of mythology. The most important was Kronos, in Latin Saturn. He ruled over the other Titans until his son Zeus dethroned him and seized the power for himself. The Romans said that when Jupiter, the name for Zeus, ascended the throne, Saturn fled to Italy and brought in the Golden Age, a time of perfect peace and happiness, which lasted as long as he reigned. Just in course. The other notable Titans were Oceanus, the river that was supposed to encircle the earth, but his wife Tethys, Hyperion, to encircle his... I'll restart that one. The other notable Titans were Oceanus, the river that was supposed to encircle the earth, his wife Tethys, Hyperion, the father of the sun, the moon and the dawn, Mnemosyne, which means memory, Themis, who usually translated by justice, and Iapetus, important because of his sons Atlas, who bore the world on his shoulders, and Prometheus, who was the savior of mankind. These alone among the older gods were not banished when the coming of Zeus. With the coming of Zeus, they took a lower place. To your right, you will see Devil's Ridge. Anyways, the 12 great Olympians were supreme among the gods who succeeded to the Titans. They were called the Olympians because Olympus was their home. What Olympus was, however, is not easy to say. There is no doubt at first that it was held to be a mountaintop, and generally identified with Greece's highest mountain, Mount Olympus, and Thessaly, in the northeast of Greece. But even the earliest Greek poem, the Iliad, this idea is beginning to give way to the idea of an Olympus in some mysterious region far above all the mountains of the earth. In one passage of the Iliad, Zeus talks to the gods from the topmost peak of many-ridged Olympus, clearing a mountain, but only a little further on he says if he willed he could hang earth and sea from a pinnacle of Olympus, clearly no longer a mountain. Even so, it is not heaven. Homer makes Poseidon say that he rules the sea, Hades the dead, Zeus the heavens, but Olympus is common to all three. Wherever it was, the entrance to it was a great gate of clouds kept by the seasons. Within were the gods' dwellings, where they lived and slept and feasted on ambrosia and nectar and listened to Apollo's lyre. It was an abode of perfect blessedness. No wind, Homer says, ever shakes the untroubled peace of Olympus. No rain ever falls there, or snow. The cloudless firmament stretches around it on all sides, and the white glory of sunshine is diffused upon its walls. The 12 Olympians made up a divine family. Zeus, the chief, whose two brothers next. Poseidon, and Hades. Then there was Hestia, their sister, Hera, Zeus's wife and sister, Ares, their son, and Zeus's many, but not all, children, Athena, Apollo, Aphrodite, Hermes, Artemis, and Hera's son, Hephaestus, sometimes said to be the son of Zeus too. Zeus. Zeus and his brothers drew lots for their share of the universe. The sea fell to Poseidon, and the underworld to Hades. Zeus became the supreme ruler. He was lord of the sky, the rain god, and the cloud gatherer, who wielded the awful thunderbolt. His power was greater than that of all the other divinities together. In the Iliad, he tells his family, "I am the mightiest of all. Make trial that you may know. Fasten a rope of gold to heaven and lay hold, every god and goddess. You could not drag down Zeus. But if I wished to drag you down, then I would. The rope I would bind to a pinnacle of Olympus, and all would hang in the air. Yes, the very earth and the sea, too." Nevertheless, he was not omnipotent or omniscient either. He could be opposed and deceived. Poseidon dupes him in the Iliad, and so does Hera. Sometimes, too, the mysterious power of fate is spoken of as stronger than he. Homer makes Hera ask him scornfully if he proposes to deliver from death a man fate has doomed. He is represented as falling in love with one woman after another, and descending to all manner of tricks to hide his infidelity from his wife. The explanation why such actions were ascribed to the most majestic of the gods is, the scholars say, that the Zeus of song and story has been made by combining many gods. When his worship spread to a town where there was already a divine ruler, the two were slowly fused into one. The wife of the early god was then transferred to Zeus. The result, however, was unfortunate, and the later Greeks did not like the endless love affairs. Even in the earliest records, Zeus had grandeur. In the Iliad, Agamemnon prays, "Zeus, most glorious, most great, god of the storm cloud, thou that dwellest in the heavens." He demanded, too, not only sacrifices from men, but right action. The Greek army at Troy is told, "Father Zeus never helps liars or those who break their oaths." The two ideas of him, the low and the high, persisted side by side for a long time. His breastplate was the aegis, awful to behold. His bird was the eagle, his tree the oak. His oracle was Dodona, in the land of oak trees. The god's will was revealed by the rustling of the oak leaves, which the priests interpreted. Hera. She was Zeus's wife and sister. The Titans Oceanus and Tethys brought her up. She was the protector of marriage, and married women were her peculiar care. There is very little that is attractive in the portrait the poets draw of her. She is called, indeed, in an early poem, "Golden-throned Hera, among immortals the queen, chief among them in beauty, the glorious lady. All the blessed in high Olympus revere, honor even as Zeus, the lord of thunder." But when any account of her gets down to the details, it shows her chiefly engaged in punishing the many women Zeus fell in love with, even when they yielded only because he coerced or tricked them. It made no difference to Hera how reluctant any of them were, or how innocent the goddess treated them all alike. Her implacable anger followed them and their children too. She never forgot any injury. The Trojan War would have ended in an honorable peace, leaving both sides unconquered, if it had not been for her hatred of a Trojan who had judged another goddess lovelier than she. The wrong of her slighted beauty remained with her until Troy fell in ruins. In one important story, The Quest of the Golden Fleece, she's the gracious protector of heroes and the inspirer of heroic deeds, but not in any other. Nevertheless, she was venerated in every home. She was the goddess married women turned to for help. Ophelia, who helped women in childbirth, was her daughter. Who helped women in childbirth was her daughter. Ugh. English. Still gotta turn a little bit. The cow and the peacock were sacred to her. Argos was her favorite city. Poseidon. He was the ruler of the sea, Zeus's brother, and second only to him in eminence. The Greeks There we go. The sea is calm tonight. I shall rest here. He was the ruler of the sea, Zeus's brother and second only to him in eminence. The Greeks on both sides of the Aegean were seamen, and the god of the sea was all important to them. His wife was Amphitrite, a granddaughter of the Titan, Oceanus. Poseidon had a splendid palace beneath the sea, but he was oftener to be found in Olympus. Besides being lord of the sea, he gave the first horse to a man, and he was honored as much as the one as the other. Lord Poseidon, from you this pride is ours, the strong horses, the young horses, and also the rule of the deep. Storm and calm were under his control. He commanded, and the storm wind rose, and the surges of the sea. But when he drove in his golden car over the waters, the thunder of the waves sank into stillness, and tranquil peace followed his smooth rolling wheels. He was commonly called Earthshaker, and was always shown carrying his trident, a three-pronged spear, with which he would shake and shatter whatever he pleased. He had some connection with bulls as well as horses, but the bull was connected with many other gods too. Hades. He was the third brother among the Olympians, who drew for his share the underworld and the rule over the dead. He was also called Pluto, the god of wealth. The god of wealth of the precious metals hidden in the earth. The Romans, as well as the Greeks, called him by this name, but often they translated it into dis, the Latin word for rich. He had a far-famed cap or helmet which made whoever wore it invisible. It was rare that he left his dark realm to visit Olympus or the earth, nor was he urged to do so. He was not a welcome visitor. He was unpitying, inexorable, but just, a terrible, not an evil god. His wife was Persephone, whom he carried away from the earth and made queen of the lower world. He was king of the dead, not death himself, whom the Greeks called Thanatos and the Romans Orcus. Pallas Athena. She was the daughter of Zeus alone. No mother bore her. Full grown and in full armor, she sprang from his head. In the earliest account of her, the Iliad, she is a fierce and ruthless battle goddess, but elsewhere she is warlike, only to defend the state and the home from outside enemies. She was preeminently the goddess of the city, the protector of civilized life, of handicrafts, and agriculture, the inventor of the bridle, who first tamed horses for men to use. She was Zeus's favorite child. He trusted her to carry the awful Aegis, his buckler, and his devastating weapon, the thunderbolt. The word oftenest used to describe her is gray-eyed, or, as it is sometimes translated, flashing-eyed. Of the three virgin goddesses, she was the chief, and was called the Maiden, Parthenos, and her temple in the Parthenon. In later poetry, she is the embodiment of wisdom, reason, purity. Athens was her special city. The olive was her tree, the owl her bird. Phobos, Apollo. The son of Zeus and Leto, born in the little island of Delos. He has been called the most Greek of all gods. He is a beautiful figure in Greek poetry, the master musician who delights Olympus as he plays on his golden lyre. The lord, too, of the silver bow, the archer god, far shooting, the healer as well, who first taught men the healing art. Even more than of these good and lovely endowments, he is the god of light, in whom is no darkness at all, and he is the God of truth. No false word ever falls from his lips. O Phobos, from your throne of truth, from your dwelling place at the heart of the world, you speak to men. By Zeus's decree no lie comes there, no shadow to darken the world of truth. Zeus is sealed by an everlasting right, Apollo's honor, that all may trust, with unshaken faith when he speaks. Delphi, under towering Parnassus, where Apollo's oracle was, plays an important part in mythology. Castelia was its sacred spring, Sisyphus its river. It was held to be the center of the world. So many pilgrims came to it, from foreign countries as well as Greece. No other shrine rivaled it. The answers to the questions asked by the anxious seekers for truth were delivered by a priestess, who went into a trance before she spoke. The trance was supposed to be caused by a vapor rising from a deep cleft in the rock, over which her seat was placed, a three-legged stool, the tripod. Apollo was called Delian from Delos, the island of his birth, and Pythian, for its killing of the serpent Python, which once lived in the caves of Parnassus. It was a frightful monster, and the contest was severe, but in the end the god's unerring arrows won the victory. Another name often given to him was the Lycan Lycian. Variously explained as meaning wolf god, god of light, and god of Lycia. In the Iliad he is called the Smithian, the mouse god, but whether because he protected mice or destroyed them no one knows. Often he was the sun god too. His name Phobos means brilliant, or shining. Accurately, however, the sun god was Helios, child of the Typhon Hyperion. Apollo at Delphi was purely beneficial power, a direct link between gods and men, guiding men to know the divine will, showing them how to make peace with the gods, the purifier too, able to cleanse even those stained with blood of their kindred. Nevertheless, there are a few tales told of him which show him pitiless and cruel. Two ideas were frightening in him, as in all gods, a primitive, cruel idea, and one that was beautiful and poetic. In him, only a little of the primitive is left. The laurel was his tree. Many creatures were sacred to him, chief among them the dolphin and the cow, and the crow. Artemis, also called Cynthia from her birthplace, Mount Cynthus in Delos. Apollo's twin sister, daughter of Zeus and Leto, she was one of the three maiden goddesses of Olympus. Golden Aphrodite, who stirs with love all creation, cannot bend nor ensnare three hearts. The pure maiden Vesta, gray-eyed Athena, who cares but for war and the arts of the craftsman. Artemis, lover of woods and the wild chase over the mountains. She was the lady of the wild things, huntsman and chief to the gods. An odd office for a woman. Like a good huntsman, she was careful to preserve the young. She was the protectress of dewy youth everywhere. Nevertheless, with one of those startling contradictions so common in mythology, she kept the Greek fleet from sailing to Troy until they sacrificed a maiden to her. In many another story, too, she is fierce and revengeful. On the other hand, when women died in a swift and painless death, they were held to have been slain by her silver arrows. As Phobos was the sun, she was the moon, called Phoebe, and Selene Luna in Latin. Neither name originally belonged to her. Phoebe was a Titan, one of the older gods. So too was Selene, a moon goddess, indeed, but not connected with Apollo. She was the sister of Helios, the sun god from with whom Apollo was confused. In later poets, Artemis is identified with Hecate. She is the goddess with three forms: Selene in the sky, Artemis on the earth, Hecate in the lower world, and in the world above when it is wrapped in darkness. Hecate was the goddess of the dark of the moon, the black nights when the moon is hidden. She was associated with deeds of darkness, the goddess of the crossways, which were held to be ghostly places of evil magic and awful divinity. Hecate of hell, mighty to shatter every stubborn thing. Hark, hark, her hounds are baying through the town. Where three roads meet, there she is standing. It is a strange transformation from these lovely huntress flashing through the forest, from the moon making all beautiful with her light, from the pure maiden goddess for whom whoso is chaste of spirit utterly may gather leaves and fruits and flowers, the unchaste never. In her is shown most vividly the uncertainty between the good and evil which is apparent in every one of the divinities. The cypress was sacred to her, and all wild animals, but especially did deer. Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty, who beguiled all, gods and men alike, the laughter-loving goddess, who laughed sweetly or mockingly at those her wiles had conquered, the irresistible goddess who stole away even the wits of the wise. She is the daughter of Zeus and Dione in the Iliad, but in the latter poem she is said to have sprung from the foam of the sea, and her name was explained as a meaning the foam risen. Aphros is foam in Greek. The sea birth took place near Cynthia, Cythera, from where she was wafted to Cyprus. Both islands were ever after sacred to her, and she was called Cytherea, or Cyprian, as often by her proper name. One of the Homeric hymns calling her beautiful golden goddess says of her, "The breath of the west wind bore her over the sounding sea, up from the delicate foam to wave-ringed Cyprus, her island, and the hours golden wreaths welcome her joyously. They clad her in raiment immortal and brought her to the gods. Wonder seized them all as they saw violet-crowned Cytherea." The Romans wrote of her name in the same way. With her, beauty comes. The winds flee before her in the storm clouds. Sweet flower embroider the earth, the waves of the sea laugh. She moves in radiant light. Without her, there is no joy nor loveliness anywhere. This is the picture of the poets like best to paint her. This is the picture the poets like best to paint her. But she had another side too. It was natural that she cut a poor figure. It was natural she would cut a poor figure in the Iliad, where the battle of heroes is the theme. She is a soft, weak creature there, whom a mortal need not fear to attack. In later poems she is usually shown as treacherous and malicious, exerting a deadly and destructive power over men. In most of the stories she is the wife of Hephaestus, the lame and ugly god of the forge. The myrtle was her tree, the dove her bird, sometimes too, the sparrow and the swan. Hermes. Zeus was his father and Maia, daughter of Atlas, his mother. Because of a very popular statue, his appearance is more familiar to us than any other god. He was graceful and swift of motion. On his feet were winged sandals. Wings were on his low-crowned hat too, and on his magic wand, the caduceus. He was Zeus's messenger, who flies as fleet as thought do his bidding. Flies as fleet as thought to do his bidding. Of all the gods, he was the shrewdest and most cunning. In fact, he was the master thief, who started upon his career before he was a day old. The babe was born at the break of day, and ere the night fell, he had stolen away Apollo's herds. Zeus made him give them back, and he won Apollo's forgiveness by presenting him with the lyre from which he had just invented, making it out of a tortoise's shell. Perhaps there is some connection between that very early story of him and the fact that he was a god of commerce in the market. protector of traders. In odd contrast to this idea of him, he was also the solemn guide of the dead, the divine herald who led the souls down to their last home. He appears oftener in tales of mythology than any other god. Ares, the god of war, son of Zeus and Hera, both of whom, Homer says, detested him. Ares, the god of war, son of Zeus and Hera, both of whom, Homer says, detested him. Indeed, he is hateful, and throughout the Iliad, poem of war though it is, occasionally the heroes rejoice in the delight of Ares' battle, but far oftener in having escaped the fury of the ruthless god. Homer calls him murderous, blood-stained, the incarnate curse of mortals, and, strangely, a coward too, who bellows with pain and runs away when he is wounded. Yet he has a train of attendants on the battlefield from which should inspire anyone with confidence. His sister there, Eris, which means discord and strife, her son, the goddess of war, Enyo, in Latin, Bellona, walks beside him, and with her are terror and trembling and panic. As they move, the voice of groaning arises behind them, and the earth streams with blood. The Romans liked Mars better than the Greeks liked Ares. He never was to them the mean, whining deity of the Iliad, but magnificent in shining armor, redoubtable, invincible. The warriors of the great Latin heroic poem, the Aeneid, far from rejoicing to escape from him, rejoice when they see that they are to fall on Mars' field of renown. They rush on glorious death and find it sweet to die in battle. Ares figures little in mythology. In one story, he is the lover of Aphrodite and held up to the contempt of the Olympians by Aphrodite's husband. He's the lover of Aphrodite, not lower. Hephaestus, but for the most part, he is little more than a symbol of war. He is not a distinct personality, like Hermes or Hera or Apollo. He had no cities where he was worshipped. The Greeks said vaguely that he came from Thrace, home of a rude, fierce people in the northeast of Greece. Appropriately, his bird was the vulture. The dog was wronged by being chosen as his animal. Oh no.